All right, I believe we are live. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Temple. Good morning, TJ. Everybody watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Really excited for another conscious conversation with you, Temple. Thanks for coming back.
Oh, I love being with you guys. It's my look forward to. I tell you, I just love it. It's always stimulating. I learn a lot. We're all lifelong learners. I
Mhm.
always say if you're around people and they know it all, move on because
That's right.
we learn every day. Every day something.
Awesome.
Yes, I love that. When I was a little younger, I remember people would say, the older I get, the less I know. And I would say, oh, they're so humble.
Yeah.
But now I realize it's just true. You
They
know, I'm,
yeah,
I'm
they became a mystic.
open
Right?
to all that I don't know. And then, of course, Course in Miracles says all we know is not all there is to know. And I love to lean into that as much as possible.
Lean into that. Well, I
Yeah.
I used a quote yesterday. Alvin Toffler said that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be people that don't know how to read or write. It's the people that do not understand how to learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Mm.
And wow, at times such as this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That
I,
being said, Temple, I think before we jump into conversation, because I know you had something you were hoping to share, but I was thinking before that, maybe we could just check in and start with just how we're doing and what's coming up for us right now. TJ, do you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I am in so much gratitude. And one thing that has been emerging for me, this it's always interesting that there is really one mind. I think if there is a topic that I have been really aware of, that is what's happening with all the opinionating, right? And I'm not going to exclude myself from that because I observe my mind having constant perspective. It's always looking at what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. And I'm aware that there's a place, there's an essential place that's beyond all of that. And for whatever reason, I have found myself really curious about what is going on with all the back and forth and the cancel culture. There's so many different things we can talk about, but I'm in a lot of gratitude. I always intend to be in a lot of gratitude. And as Temple said the last time we had our show, you know, this might be exactly what we've all been asking for. So 2020 may be the year that is the huge transformation we've all been hoping for. So I'm grateful. I'm happy to be here. And I think I'm just always looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, TJ. Temple, how about you?
I'm just in a really great space. I just I really I'm just grateful for the teaching. I'm grateful for the things we talk about every time we get together because it is a practice. And I always say that it's one thing to talk about I'm new thought or I'm a thought leader or I'm so I have 7 books or I have this or that. That's all really nice. At the end of the day, do you use those tools when you're
Mhm.
called forth to use them? And that's to me what is so imperative and so important. And when this first came about, it was, wow, we're prepared for this. As new thoughters or thought leaders or whatever you want to call us, um, we are prepared for this because we say welcome everything. We say greet everything in your life. We don't say you caused it. I mean, well, some people do. Metaphysical malpractice, but we're
Yes.
not interested in analyzing the why of it. That in one of the Native American languages, the word why, and one of the cultures, they don't have the word why. We may never know all the reasons why, but what we do know is this is what it is right now. And so that's what we teach is to be with what is. And so we got all excited as a community and our team. It's like, seize this moment. Don't just say, let's see what we can pull and throw together and just get by, because this thing is probably just going to last a month or so, the thing called COVID. And it might be all of 2020 for all we know. We don't even know. But what we decided is that we were going to seize the moment. And when we did our Gay Pride Sunday, and we did do some boosting on our Gay Pride Sunday, we've had 142,000 views because we collectively decided to focus on dreams right now. And I think that that is something that often there's such a disconnect with even people that are in the practice. It's like, focus on things you've been wanting to do that you haven't had the time, or other things have pulled you in the other direction. And as a funny though, I'll tell you, I've noticed this, for years, you could be on the phone with somebody and you could actually be doing 2 or 3 other things. But I don't know if you've noticed, because people have had more levels of silence and there's not as much traffic noise and life noise and everything. Boy, they catch on to it real quick. They'll say, I can tell you're focusing on something else. And I went, caught. For before, nobody noticed. We're just showing our, we're achieving a goal or climbing a ladder or signing up for something or taking a new course because we're not enough and we got to be enough. Anyway, that was a funny thing that I've noticed, is that that people are more attentive to, like, if you're fully present. So
awesome. Temple, you mentioned something I'm super curious about, and I know you had a story that you wanted to share, and I'm eager to get to that. But first, you mentioned something called metaphysical malpractice, and I've never heard that before. I'm just curious if you could kind of share what that. I can kind of assume what it means, but I'd like to hear what it means to you.
Well, I think, just like cause and effect, and then came out, the book, You Can Heal Your Life with Louise Hay. And if you're having knee problems, it means you have needs not being met. And, and so what can happen in any type of theology or spirituality is we can always have a bit of a spiritual self-righteous flair. And that really comes from a wounded teacher or a shadow of a teacher. Maybe it's somebody that wrote a book that the book didn't sell. There's a shadow of self-righteous. And so you might, have a friend call you and say, I'm having lots of, sinus issue lately. And so the part is to say, well, it's probably because, you've been living against the grain for quite some time. It's probably because you and your husband, it's not been going well. Or let me just fix you and tell you that I know that you caused it. There's a reason we know you caused it. That's what we call metaphysical malpractice. It's that you're in a self-righteous way, making a claim that you know why someone has attracted in their life something. And I just always urge people, please don't do that, because there's karma, and you don't want to understand really why that person finds themselves where they're at, because in your next lifetime, you might get a good shot at it to see that they're doing the best they can. So it's like my teacher. I had some tough teachers, and a lot of our teachers today are all watered down, because they want to be liked. But my teacher said, you could spend, weeks and weeks and weeks, trying to figure out why you have the headache. Just take 2 aspirin and shut up, So if you're supposed to know why as an individuation of God, you'll get your answer. But when we start taking on somebody else's stuff, we've crossed a line. And it's so unkind to say to somebody that's in pain, well, you caused it, you can uncause it. It's like slap, because it's so small. It's so small, as a soul agreement, 20 lifetimes ago, I might have made an agreement to say in this one, in the early throes of my life, I was going to be an alcoholic. Do you know what I mean? But to sit around and say I intentionally caused it, or I caused myself to be gay so I could go through all that pain and everything. I didn't consciously say, this sounds like a heck of a lot of fun. People are going to talk about you. They might put you away in a mental home. They might try to give you medication for being gay, and your family's going to turn on you, but you caused it. I don't think so. You with me? So
That makes sense.
hopefully enough examples there, but you would be surprised how many people do that often. And it's pathetically sad.
Yeah, and I of course I love what you're saying, and Jeremy, if you read my first book, Conscious Being, I actually talk about metaphysical malpractice. That's the
yeah.
No, my two favorite things three things that just emerged. One thing that I love that you say, Temple, that I actually do quote you in, I think my second book, Conscious Recovery, is the term woundology. And I love that, right? When we're acting from our woundology. And I think actually what you're saying, it ties so beautifully into our topic today, because blame of others and blame of self is at the root of that, right? So when I came into New Thought, I did discover, oh my gosh, I can heal my life. Oh my gosh, my thoughts do create reality. When I am tapped into my infinite power, anything is possible. But the trap to that, and Jeremy, this is answering your question, the trap to that for me was I went into blame. If something didn't look the way it was supposed to, I was so programmed to decide whose fault it was. And usually in my case, it was my own fault. So I was blaming myself for everything that happened. And that's what we mean by metaphysical malpractice, right? I love that. And when we come into new teaching, because I know a lot of people that came into New Thought from traditional Christianity, right? So they were deeply programmed in this idea of heaven and hell and good and bad and the judge, and there's something fundamentally wrong. I was born with original sin and I need to somehow repent to be worthy. And so we can come into New Thought and sometimes subtly redress the language, but still say the same thing, right? So if I'm saying, the cosmic 2x4 will get me if I don't do this well or do it right. Well, that's just a redressed version of a punishing God, right? There's this universe. So we just changed the name to universe. The universe will get you. Karma will get you, right? And I know when Temple's talking about karma, she's not talking about like sort of the pop definition, if you will. Like pop psychology is, oh, if I do this, karma will get me. I think, we're talking about something much deeper. Karma to me is actually me continuing to view myself in the world the same way over and over again and getting their same results. And it feels like it's happening outside, but it's really me continuing to have the same point of view. Temple, I believe what you're talking about is that we don't really know why. That's the booby trap, right? The mind is, if I can figure out why. I don't know why certain things happen to certain people. I don't know why. And me trying to figure out why was, for me, and this is just for me, as I was thinking if I could figure out why, I could get rid of it. And maybe the goal's not to get rid of it. Maybe it's transformational. Maybe it's something that I'm going through so that I can evolve or wake up. Because I actually don't believe everything happens for a reason, not in the way the human mind wants to believe, right? Because someone can get an illness. So a more subtle version of metaphysical malpractice can be, oh, this might be the greatest gift for you. This might be the greatest opportunity for you. Maybe the universe gave you cancer so that you could go deeper, right? So my good friend, and I'm sure Temple, Paul Hasselbeck, right? Dean of Students at Unity Institute. He's hilarious. And he said, no, we don't cause what happened, but we can recognize that we have the power within us to have a very different experience of it and to heal that. So I think the human mind wants to go to blame. And maybe that's just a program we have. And the finger pointing and the blaming myself doesn't really move us. It just keeps us stuck.
And well, the other part about that is that when I say karma, I'm talking about being a reincarnated Tibetan person. I'm talking about a soul. See, the part of our societal values, it's based upon a lot of it personality and that kind of thing, driven by almost like a herded group of people. You know,
Mhm.
Walgreens is giving you a shot. It's on discount. Go today. Well,
Right.
why am I taking a shot? Do I want a shot? Do I need a shot? So we are, when you are thinking, you're thinking for yourself. That's why the statement is be aware when a thinker has been unleashed, because you're no longer willing to be herded. It doesn't
Mm.
mean that you may not still come to that same understanding, but you went through your own process to get there. But karma, I'm talking about a soul journey
Yes.
that's not related to this one time. This is not
Right.
it. And many lifetimes. And the reason that I got so involved in this is because when I joined early on, especially Jeremy, as a young kid, I joined organizations that told me change your thinking, change your life.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a layer. That's
Yes.
a layer. It's a great layer. And it, when you talk about it and you get into a trained mind with your thinking, then it does open your heart. You know, when
Right.
we say, why did I cause this? What we're really saying is, I think I'm in control. And when we think
Right.
we're in control, then we're already trying to give the direction somewhere without really being in the somewhere that we're at. But the other part for me is that I looked around, myself included, of all these people saying, change your thinking, change your life. I didn't see that many lives changing. And it
Mhm.
wasn't judgment. I mean, they were telling me, well, my lives changed a little bit, but then, you know, then that happened. And then, you know, and then I lost my truck. And then, you know, and I wrote a country music song, you know, that kind of thing. So what I did is I asked for more. What is the more? And then that's when I got into the throes of shamanism.
Yeah.
And so if I meet somebody that's 50, 60 years old and they have the same kind of repeated patterns in their life, and they're doing everything, they're listening to TJ on YouTube, they're reading the books, they're on Facebook, they're watching Chopra, they're into Oprah, you know, blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah. They follow me, maybe, whatever. And they still have this stuff happens.
Mhm.
Okay. And they're working on their thinking and they're working on their language time and time again. When I have worked with that person and done soul retrieval, it's not even from this lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not from this lifetime. It's from other journeys of their soul. So they're not conscious of it. They're not
Right.
doing it on purpose. They've done their mental work. They might have been seeing a therapist for years, but they still got the same stuff. It just either looks fancier or different. And that's
Mhm.
why the retrieval part, and that's when it opened up another understanding for me that I can't teach this anymore. I can't say
Mm.
this is the thing. It's
Right.
helpful. Changing your thinking, changing your life is a wonderful journey. And it's not all there is.
Yeah.
So that's when I started really understanding my own humanity and my own issues about certain things. Is I saw, wow, in that lifetime, that's what happened. That's wild. And see, you can't make this stuff up and you can't control it. Because see, when someone comes to me and I see images, I have no idea what they mean
Right.
until I say it to the person. So,
Mm.
yeah, so it's change your energy, change your life, change your thinking,
Yes.
change your life, you know,
Wow.
train your mind
Mhm.
so your heart can be open.
Right.
It's a lot of things.
Well, I'm glad I asked because you guys are like blowing my freaking mind right now.
Well, and I would love to also just keep going with it for a moment, because Temple, you and I did a show many years ago together. We did a series, I don't know if it's still even out there, that was called Beyond the Law of Attraction, right? Where we were
Oh, yeah,
talking
yeah,
about, because
yeah.
the law of attraction came in, you know, some years ago, and our friend Michael was part of it, and there were some amazing things that emerged, and people did understand in a huge way. I guess the masses understood that we do change our thinking and change our life. But what Temple and I are saying is that's only one little piece of it. And then
Yeah.
we're called to go deeper, because it's really, as Temple so beautifully said, change your frequency, change your life, change your energy, right? Because it's energy that creates. So if I believe very deeply that I'm an unlovable person, and I stand in front of the mirror every day and say, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, I'm going to get some movement. But if I don't really get down and work on the core vibration, but wait, I really am unlovable, because that frequency is not only what attracts, see, because the law of attraction is about what do I attract to me. But in my experience, it's really more about what I radiate and what I believe I'm worthy of receiving, right? So if, for example, I have not done work on healing my past, right? Making peace with the past and overcoming or working with some of these core beliefs or core frequencies. That's why I'm saying, gosh, I'm doing the affirmations. And, for me, I did the vision board. I put everything on there. It was the beautiful house, the hot guy, the great car, all of it. And this is what happened for me. And this is an important part of the story for me. I did manifest all of it. But what happened at the end of that process, or in the midst of that process, I was like, why don't I feel better? Why don't I feel different? So I wasn't acknowledging it to me or to anyone else, because I was so into the unity teachings and law of attraction and change your thinking, change your life. But what happened was it did work for me. But then there was this sense of, oh, I still don't feel worthy of it. So I ended up sabotaging it in all these different ways and breaking up and losing the house and losing the business. And all that was part of my journey to recognize that eventually it comes down to what energy am I tuned into? Because I actually think a lot of times we talk about raising our vibration. And for me, it's more about tuning into that deeper vibration that's in the midst of everything, that core frequency that we come in with, that we might call God essence or source energy. And when I tap into that, I recognize I'm an infinite being. And then the greatest paradox happened for me. I realized that I needed nothing outside of myself to be happy, that happy joy was my true frequency. And then as I tuned into that, all of a sudden, everything that I ever wanted started to manifest. But it was a paradox. And when I was trying to do it to get it, I was doing it because I was hoping that once I got it, I would be happy. And so I had it backwards. And it was a great and fun, joy-filled and pain-filled experience going through all of that.
Wow. That's
Wow.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful, I love this conversation. This is so meaningful for me. And I do see, like you mentioned, TJ, I do see a big correlation with what we were planning to discuss today, which is this like abundance of opinionating and kind of the overwhelm of opinions and judgments. And is COVID real? Is it fake? Is racism real? Is it invented? Right? Like all these things. And I personally, I'll kind of springboard with my experience, which is I find myself having all these opinions and wanting to share them and argue and all these judgments that are just like rapid fire. Like I scroll Facebook and it's like every post I find myself like feeling this urge to reply and respond. And it's not really coming from a place I feel of who and what I really am. It's this really weird kind of like primitive reaction almost, where it's like I see a post that's hostile or antagonistic and I want to reply with that energy, knowing that it's not really me. And so I'm curious what you guys think about that. Maybe Temple, we could start with you.
Yeah, well, a part of it that's going on is, there is the race consciousness energy. And so there's a vibration that is on the collective. So it's not just my vibration and raising frequency or inward frequency or TJ's or yours. It's on the collective. And this is a place that as a world, we are in one of the most vulnerable places that we have been as a world, all at the same time. Now talk about vulnerability. talk about some of the countries that children wake up and watch their mother die from no food and think they may be next. I mean, we don't even know, that on one level, it's almost pathetic because we don't even know what real raw being vulnerable is,
Right.
But as a first world country, this is what we're facing with what we are prepared or not prepared to do. We are extremely domesticated, like you can't take a feral cat and bring them indoors and let them have a full domesticated life and then just throw them back out because they don't know how to go, it's hard for them to go back to that innate. That's part of what's going on with us is we are being forced to go back to, you're calling it primitive, you're calling it a part of you you've never seen before, you're talking about feelings you may not have witnessed before. It's like all of it is up. We got our ancestors involved, our spirit guides, everybody is up right now. And we are gurgitating this aspect of us on a collective journey. And it can be a lot. However, that is exactly what this whole show has been about, is that it's having a core established for yourself. So even though you may have moments that you feel a reactive something coming your way, or you might feel as something coming your way, you can transform that response to something that might be a stern response. You may still want to put your thoughts on Facebook, but they're coming from a way that they could be heard instead of being reacted to. And so it's, I'll give you a different example of that, is that when we had our Gay Pride Sunday, and I've evolved through the years too, of being out loud and being just yay. And so I say, let's target our Facebook, because the whole program, the whole Sunday was songs from The Greatest Showman. There were transgender performers. We also included in there a lot of, Black Lives Matter and blah, blah, all of that. And so it was just very interesting because it was so raw and so out loud. And a number of us leaders shared our story, for 3 or 4 minutes. My point to you is, intentionally, I said, send it everywhere. Don't send it to the places that Facebook thinks people will like us. Send it everywhere. And Jeremy, you want to talk about comments and some of the things that people said? Wow, that's when you realize you live in a bubble. And that's part of what we tend to want to do. We want to be with people like us, and we want to align with people that like us on social media. And so, I mean, we had some comments, let me tell you. But see, rather than, 15 years ago, if that had happened, I would have said, please take that down.
Yeah.
It's too controversial, take it down. And now I go, see how many more people you can send it to, because this is so great. This is so wonderful, right? And so it's the grounded part of me that I know who I am today.
Yeah.
I know who I am today. Now, I'm not going to predict to you what that might look like 6 months from now, but who I am today, I'm comfortable with that. So you can make all the ugly comments, you can call me names, you can tell my team to be prepared to sing that song on Judgment Day. See, I don't feel sorry for me. I feel sorry for you. So it's that part. So when you are grounded, then the fight or the appearance of adversarial energy doesn't take your day. It helps you see that that's sometimes what it's going to take to lead people on the other side of the bridge. And it's not offensive. It's just that you're like almost happy. God, I'm so glad that I played part of your awakening today. whatever. I
Mhm.
think you get the point. So.
Mhm.
Wow, so incredible, Temple. I just so much wisdom there for everyone watching. Just pause for a moment, and I want to offer kind of a recap of a couple of things that I think are important that Temple said, starting with the most powerful, which is I know who I am, right?
Yeah.
And to be able
Yeah.
to say, I know who I am and I know what I am, and to recognize that I'm not my opinions, right? Because my mind is constantly opinionating, but my essential self recognizes that there's a place beyond any thought, right? There's a part of me that is beyond thought. And when I'm aware of that and I'm grounded in that, then I'm not going to get hooked by the opinion of others. The other thing that you touched on, Temple, which I think is really important, is that for whatever reason, we're in a culture right now where we tend to be really strongly affiliated with my tribe. Right. And now that might be something, I was going to say that might be really tribal, but that might be really deeply instinctual that we try to find the people that feel safe to us. There is an issue with that, though, because for the most part, most of us, and thank you, Temple, for also saying, sometimes as Americans, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so horrible what we're going through. But there are people, thousands, I don't even know, Temple, the numbers, but there are hundreds and thousands of people that die all the time on this planet from starvation. That is a pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And so to recognize that what I'm experiencing isn't everything, but this thing about a tribe, I understand why, because at some point in our evolution, we needed to find our tribe to stay safe, right? To stay safe from predators. But for the most part, predator is now a mindset and not a reality for most of us, right?
Mhm.
So the issue that I see happening right now, and I'm just going to name it, and it's something really popular now, and that is cancel culture. And so as Black Lives Matter emerged, I noticed a lot of my white friends calling people out for their racism and copying and pasting and posting, this person's a racist, let's go after them. But what I don't think we heal anything by that. The way I'm really working with it myself is like, rather than pointing at someone else's issue, ism, homophobia, whatever it is, their politics, I look at what's happening internally with me and I start to question my own unconscious beliefs and biases. If we can pause and not be in the reactive mind, there's that great meme, and I think Jeremy, you and I may have said this on another show, but there's this great meme of someone that's in front of his computer and he said, there, I posted my opinion on Facebook. Now everything's going to be fine. Right? It's like, do I really think that's the way? So I remember when Ellen DeGeneres had a conversation and took a picture with George W. Bush, and they took a selfie.
Oh yeah.
And people went crazy. How could you be friends with him? And she said, I am friends with people that don't agree with me on everything. And she got so much pushback.
Yeah.
And that's called being a human being, right? I intend to, as much as possible, have conversations with people that don't see the world the way I do. I think that's the way we grow. And the byproduct of that is, and maybe that's not the byproduct, the deeper meaning of it is I get to recognize my shared humanity, right? I don't think we're as polarized as the media wants us to be, right? I do recognize that if I put some things out there, I'm going to get some comments, but those comments are coming from fear and ego. And if I react from my own fear and ego, we just create an ego war. And by the way, every war is created from the ego, 100%. It's not possible otherwise. Most wars are about religion. Mine is right and yours is wrong, or this is my land, or you took my land and I'm going to take it back. Those are all ego constructs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we, speaking of Ellen, we have prayers for her right now, because I don't know who in the upper part of news, she either didn't give an award or invite them to her show, because somebody's really out for her, and
Oh, wow.
she's getting a lot of bad press right now. So I just hold her in our prayers. Like, come on. I mean, don't we really have some other significant things to talk about, that she didn't say hi to her security guard and make him feel that he was important? That's not our responsibility, people. If you don't know you're important, There's nobody else in the world that's going to make you feel that other than yourself. Or if they did make a big deal out of you, you wouldn't have heard it anyway. So
Well,
anyway, but not to, totally change the subject or.
oh, I love that. I think you're on. I want to like talk about that because I think it's so powerful. I love it because we are in a culture right now that a lot of us believe that the outside needs to fix the inside, right?
Yep.
And first of all, there's nothing broken anyway, right? But if you just treat me a certain way, I can be okay. Or if this particular thing passes, this legislation, then I'll be okay. And I want to be really clear. I'm not saying that's not important. But just like my vision board, right? Just like when I did my vision board and that it all came true, there are people who have just a lot of hatred for a particular political figure right now. But once he's gone, there'll be someone else to hate, right? There's going to be someone else to judge. So the deeper work here, I think what all three of us are saying is the deeper work here is really looking at what's getting touched. And it's the woundology. There's a wound getting touched within me, but it's getting touched so I can heal. It's not, there's nothing wrong with having that touched. The issue is if I'm not willing to be present with it, then I react. And when I react, I blame you and I finger point and I miss the opportunity for the growth that is really wanting to happen.
Absolutely. It brings up all the shadow stuff. And, for me, it's just like with Black Lives Matter, it's what I've noticed. I've always used that quote, united we stand and divided we're merely a distraction. And I love that quote. And it's not just with a lot of people, united we stand. It's also how we are divided as a person. United, united I stand, divided I am merely a distraction. It's like a teacher along the way used to say, if you're not careful, if you don't know what you stand for, you could fall for anything. And that we have a lot of that. But with Black Lives Matter, it's like, for me, it's like, I'm unwilling to participate with people that want to keep changing the subject. Well, let's turn it into something else. Well, let's say all lives matter. Well, like the person, it's such a ignorant statement to make, because if the person is saying Black Lives Matter, in order for them to be there, they've already done the work, to know that all lives matter. And I use this thing, I said, a few weeks ago, I'm on an international board for the Pyramid Society, and we were talking about the value of pyramids. And I said, and I'm so glad somebody didn't jump on Facebook and say, well, all structures matter. Like, oh my God, where are we going to go with this? It's like, it's just like, wow. But the excitement is to be sober and to be awake and not be medicated and watch all this. I mean, it is.
Yes.
So if you run out of anything to give yourself, Jeremy, and you think well, I could be doing it a little better or a little different, start there. Just give thanks that you are a feeling, thinking, immersed human being, and that you are watching all of this while not being medicated, not doing cough medicine when you don't have a cough. That was the best drug. Oh my God, I loved it when I used to drink. It's like, I think I have a cough. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And it's really interesting because, to rewind to the beginning of our conversation today, we were talking about, changing your thought, changing your life is a layer.
Yeah.
So to correlate that to the opinionating on social media, it's recognizing that this is touching something. I see that as a change of thought. And the deeper layer underneath that is changing your frequency, which then correlates to addressing that wound and doing the work necessary to start healing that wound. And so when I hear these concepts like change your frequency or, address the wounds, they sound really good to me. Conceptually, it's like, oh yeah, of course. But then, you know, we'll end our Zoom, an hour will pass. I kind of snap into my routine, and that stuff kind of falls away as all the distractions start flooding in. And so in a time where we are so immersed in this constant motion, this constant ego versus ego, and all this feedback and, you know, collective energy that's just really shaken up, what does it look like? What does it entail to address these wounds, to change our frequency? What does that look or feel like?
Well, it's not a one size fits all. And the first thing I think is to recognize that it rings true within yourself, that you heard it, you identified with it, you resonated with it. So obviously there's something that can be done. And so then, because it's an individual thing, and so then what you do is you say, I'm ready to move forward with this. And I'm going to invoke, I'm going to call in the right experiences that will come to me. And this is the part that's so tough to change for people, because we've been trained, you need this, you buy this, you got to have this, you got to do this, and you got to get this new thing because it's going to fix us. And it's all wonderful. And I'm not saying that it doesn't do a lot of good. The newest book, it does a world of good. But you want to attract to you what would work and identify best with you. So therefore, you say, here I am, and I am open, and I am calling in the next part of the frequency change that Jeremy is going to have. So bring it to me. So you're not on Google searching for it. You're not trying to find out what this one did and that one did. You are paying attention to your life. What emails do you start getting? What phone calls do you have? What people do you resonate with? It will find you. And when it comes to you and it finds you, it's yours. It's your process to do. Excuse me a moment. I have a little dog that has a process. Okay. That's why live is so beautiful. We'll be back.
Good.
You know, I love what Temple just said, Jeremy, and I'm reminded of my good friend Patricia Keel. One time she came to guest speak at my spiritual center, and she said, I'm not going to speak today, but I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. There are 3 steps to spiritual transformation. Step 1 is awareness. Step 2 is awareness. And step 3 is awareness. Let's open it up for questions. And I love that, because as Temple said so beautifully, I need to first be aware of what's happening in my life, right? I am not a victim to the world. And even understanding that I do have these places within me that are getting touched, simply being aware that the world isn't happening to me, but I'm creating my reality. Now that's a huge step. And as they say, the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off, right? I felt really comfortable being a victim in the world to a certain extent, because I didn't have to be accountable. And so when I became aware coming into new thought, oh, I do create my reality, it was both relieving, and also it was, oh my gosh, you mean everything that I'm experiencing is based on the way that I'm viewing it? So that awareness is such an important first step. And then Jeremy, as you said so beautifully, aware of what's being touched within me, but not from a place of judgment, like, oh, I shouldn't be, because, oh, I'm X number of years old, I should be finished working through this, or, oh, I'm so spiritual, I shouldn't feel angry, or, and that's all part of the metaphysical malpractice that we didn't quite talk about that piece of it too, because at the root of metaphysical malpractice is I'm oh so spiritual, so I shouldn't fill in the blank. I shouldn't be envious. I shouldn't feel sad. I shouldn't be angry, all of those things. So looking at myself with openness and curiosity and compassion and just being aware, I wonder what's getting touched right now. And then Jeremy, you said this, Temple, you said this, and then recognizing there's a place within me that is unharmed and unharmable, right? Because, in conscious recovery, we talk about underneath all addictive behavior is an essential self that is whole and perfect. But understanding that intellectually, that sounds really nice, but to really recognize my spiritual essence is whole and perfect and it's never been harmed, I can tune into that frequency, not from a bypass way of like, oh, I'm going to pretend like I don't have this wound, but when I'm anchored in the truth of who and what I am, my opinions matter less. And if my opinions matter less, then so does everybody else's. And then I'm also more courageous in terms of leaning into the wound. You know, I spent 15 years running from my sexual trauma. And I remember I would say things like, wow, I have a lot of symptoms of someone who has been traumatized sexually. I have all these symptoms. That's really interesting. And then I would shut it down because it felt too scary. And when I finally realized it's time to heal this, I had anchored myself in spirit enough to recognize that I wasn't the wound. I had the wound, but it's not who I was. It's not who I am. And from that place, then I could start to love that part of myself that felt wounded. You know, the three of us did an entire show on healing the inner child. That's the deeper work. But if I think I am my wound, if I am, like, let's say I am someone who was abused, right? If I attach my I am to that, how do I ever really heal it? So I honor it and recognize from this essential place that now it's time for me to be able to have the love and compassion to start to feel some of this and start to heal some of this. And I don't even, this is a controversial statement. It's going to be a question, actually. What if we don't have to heal all our wounds? What if instead I learn how to be with them and I learn how to love them and I learn how to integrate them and I learn how to have compassion for them while also recognizing at the same time that it's not the deepest truth of who I am. And in that way, that what we used to call a trigger, what gets activated is great news. Someone says something that's, you know, someone posts on Facebook something that's homophobic, and I see if I have oh, isn't that great news? There's a little more healing for me. There's a little more compassion I can have for myself. So then the world becomes a kind place because every button that gets pushed is being pushed for my healing. Thank you, judgment. You know, thank you, this other political party. Thank you, this president or this presidential candidate. You're touching something in me, and look at all the healing that's possible. Look at all the integrating. Look at all the love I can give myself.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Temple, did you have anything on that?
I was just like, I love the way you teach, TJ. It's just really, really cool. And I just love the impact that you make in the world. It's really, really awesome. I told this story yesterday that it's just very quick. It's a wife is watching the news, and on the news it's saying on all the stations that there's a madman on the interstate going the wrong way. And so she says, oh my gosh, I got to call my husband and let him know because he's out running errands. And so she calls him and says, honey, I just want you to be aware of this is all over the news. There's a madman and he's going the wrong way and it's just really bad. And he goes, oh, hon, there's not just one, there's hundreds of them doing the same thing.
I love it. I knew that's where it was going. That's so good.
And that, that is how we all thought, because we want to be in control, and being in control makes us feel comfortable. We all thought that, COVID was going to just last just a few minutes or not long at all. And then we thought it would last 2 weeks, and then we thought it would last a month, and then we thought it was only happening in New York, and it was happening in Italy, and then we realized it's happening everywhere. And we have these hundreds of opinions, coming our way and wanting to lead us in a particular direction. Yeah. And we want to be, really clear that we are making our assessments from a place of being grounded. That's not fear-based, that's not reactive. And just to stand in that and be comfortable with one's decision. A person will say, I wear a mask everywhere I go. Good for you. Or I only wear a mask when I'm with certain people. Good for you. you're doing what works for you. And that's the part that this is a great practice field, for us to understand. You do what's best for you. And if it doesn't work for you, then don't go to wherever it is that other people are doing, what they're doing. Because we still come back to, it's done unto you as you believe. As you believe. I mean, years ago, before I matured a little more, I had a difficult time if someone that I loved was telling me that they were going to do chemo. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm not saying I did this in public settings, but privately with someone special to me. And I would go, are you sure? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so I said, I'm going to see that medicine of love flowing through you. I'm going to see that energy of love flowing through you. I'm not going to take on telling them that that's probably not the best route to take. They believe in that route. Oh, wow. Am I self-righteous implying that I could take that away? Now I would ask a person, are you sure this is the direction you want to go? Absolutely. Well, then knowing that, I want to support you. So while they're having their chemo treatment and connected, then I'm sending a vibration of love and health and energy and all of that. You see? So we can shift. We can shift. And there's power in how we can hold this space for other people in a very loving and dynamic way. And for sure. And with this life, there's only so many things you can take on anyway.
Right.
So take on the things that you were willing to live by, that you're willing to stand for. It's like the admirer said to the great pianist, oh, I'd give my life if I could play like you. And the guy says, actually I did.
Right.
I did. So plan your life right now as to how you want to be quoted later. Right?
That's beautiful, Temple. Thank you. TJ, do you have any final thoughts before we end off here?
Just the same way we open, which is gratitude. I'm incredibly grateful. I do want to say, recognizing everything that we've said, the frequency does have an effect on every room in our house, our physical, our intellectual, our emotional, and our spiritual. And when I start changing the frequency or tuning into a deeper frequency, that affects the body. And so, Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing a lot of talk about what fear does to the immune system, right? So if I think I'm protecting myself against something, guess what? I'm protecting myself against something. And I create more of that need to protect myself. When I recognize I'm an infinite being and that, so my affirmation for myself from a health perspective is, I love and appreciate my incredible immune system that is always, always, always effervescent and vital. Whatever words come to me, right? Because the body is designed to always keep us healthy. And so to tune back into that, right? And so I know it's not really a closing comment. Maybe it's a segue into our next show, but just putting on a mask isn't going to protect me if I believe that I'm in a great amount of danger from a virus, right? I become more susceptible to it. And so for someone watching, we're not saying that someone causes the virus or causes it or calls it in. What I'm saying, and what I hope that we all would agree in, I'm sure Temple and Jeremy, is that, okay, here it is. What do I do with that? There's a power within me that's greater than that, right? That healing power. And so maybe that's more of a segue into our next show. But for the closing thoughts for this show, just thank you, Temple. I love co-creating with you. And Jeremy, of course, I love co-creating with you. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you both so much.
Love being with you guys. Thank you.
Too,
and
Temple.
everyone listening, please share.
That's right.
Please share our interactions with each other, share them with your friends, or do a watch party, because we're all here for supporting one another right now.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody watching. We'll see y'all next time.
Thank you, everyone.